But he did watch all 7 videos, even though he hates the first two. Oh, sorry,
And
we're
you're fine.
live.
It's Monday. Oh, welcome to Monday. We made it through the weekend. I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
Uh, on that subject, I had just got through watching um, Indie Geeks is John a Targaryen video where he
Uh-huh.
goes through and he lays it out really well on why he's not. And at the very end, well, I don't necessarily think that this is true. I'm like, why do the video then? I mean, but neither here nor there. A
Yeah.
Clash of Kings, Arya 6. Short chapter. I
Arya
got
meets
my
Chiswick at least.
Revenge is Coming shirt, and I also got Needle.
Cool.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, he is old dude. I'm Richard York, Asher's trueborn son. Blah blah blah. Get started. Arya meets Chiswick and Lys and forms a longer list than just her whispers. So yeah, those two are, of course, her the name she whispers.
Yeah.
Um, the For those who are wondering what the heck I was talking about, I've been discussing my videos with Toodles, who I think has had some really great observations in the past, and I often quote Toodles. And but Toodles tends to complicate things a little more than I do, and does not like Ned and Nashara. And that's fine. Like we said, these books are deliberately ambiguous and open to multiple interpretations.
Well, it's like I said the other day, or even on I think it was my last theory video. I mean, you put yourself in these theories. It's hard to take
Right.
away
Yeah.
your initial opinion of a subject and have it be changed by words. Like
Yep.
me and my son, we're really, really loving that Jon Snow is Jon Stark. That's we love it.
Right. Right.
That
Right. I love the idea that he's Ned's one trueborn kid, and that
yeah,
in Ned's mind his marriage with Catelyn probably isn't even valid to him, right? Either way you look at it, right? I mean,
right.
part of the point, people, it's funny how many readers point to Ned's statement that Joffrey is the true heir, right, in public, and how he invokes the seven and doesn't mention the old gods.
Yeah.
Although I think if you look carefully, I think he does say all gods at one point in there. But anyway, um, so they say it's a vow about the seven, and therefore it's invalid. And yet he married Catelyn in a sept. And I'm pretty sure that George has said that he didn't like Rob's wedding in the show because there's no way a Northman would ever get married in a sept.
Right.
And people will hear that and they go, but Ned got married in a sept. And it's like, yes, that's his point. Anyway, that's not the valid marriage. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it.
No problem.
Fear cuts deeper than swords. Arya would tell herself. Oh, and the fact that the first two videos are the thing he really despises, that he went ahead and watched all 7 with William talking about it. I admire that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's easy when you find out that the whole premise is based upon the thing that the interpretation that you don't like, to then reject it. And no, he watched all 7 videos in order to talk to you about them. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Fear cuts deeper than swords, Arya would tell herself, but that did not make the fear go away. It was as much a part of her days as stale bread and the blisters on her toes after a long day of walking the hard, rutted road. She had thought she had known what it meant to be afraid, but she learned better in that storehouse beside the God's Eye. 8 days she had lingered there before the mountain gave the command to march, and every day she had seen someone die. The mountain would come into the storehouse after he'd broken his fast and pick one of the prisoners for questioning. Sir Dave Zilla says, "Howdy, howdy, lords and ladies. Good to have you
Hey,
here.
Sir Dave.
Good to have you here."
Happy Monday.
A man the others called the Tickler asked the questions. His face was so ordinary and his garb so plain that Arya might have thought him one of the villagers before she had seen him at his work. Tickler makes them howl so hard they piss themselves, old stoop-shouldered Chiswick told them. He was the man she tried to bite, who called her a fierce little thing and smashed her head with a mailed fist. Sometimes he helped the Tickler. Sometimes others did that. Sir Gregor Clegane himself would stand motionless, watching and listening until the victim died. So I did find Chiswick interesting. George somehow manages to simultaneously make the reader, or at least me, agree with Arya wanting to kill him on the first read, and then question why he would need to die for laughing at the mountain's evil on reread. Like logically, we should hate the mountain, but it definitely feels right initially.
Yeah.
Much like the choices for war that we've discussed in the past, how each one of them in the moment seems like it's some sort of epic, triumphant moment, and then you go back and look, and it's usually a mistake, right?
Yeah. You remember before we were talking about the inner voice? This is an example of when George says Arya would tell herself. So it's clearly Arya saying this, but the other times that it's just the expression silent as the snake or whatever the hell the expression is, and there's nothing to follow it. Those are the ones that I think are Stereo Pharrell or Future Brand or somebody that's telling her the church one.
Yeah. Look, Lindsay says, "Ugh, I forgot it was this chapter. Poor all for Joffrey." Yeah, I actually kind of skipped over that part in the notes because there's several different examples, but the fact, um, I mean, I get why they're showing them, right? They're trying to show that they're that they won't give anybody an easy way out. There's no option to try and
Well, Armory
and it
Lock.
kind of, I was gonna say, it almost makes sense in that you don't want, if there were a spy among them, they might be trying to ingratiate themselves with people with, whether that would be with I mean, so you can kind of sort of see the logic. I think the logic of well, first off, torture is unreliable, and we'll talk about that and so forth.
Yeah.
But I can kind of sort of see the logic that the people who are attempting to be especially nice to them are people that they are going to be suspicious of. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I mean, I put Armory Lock in the same category as I do the Mountain. So when he was outside the gate with Euron, even if Euron had opened the gate, they would have killed everybody anyway.
Oh yeah. I think that's clear. They killed everything, right? I mean, they talk about that.
Yeah. Once the Mountain Armory Lock gets their hands on you, I mean, you're done. There's nothing. I mean, there's no begging. There's no pleading. I mean, that's it. You're.
Right. Yeah.
The ones that were. I mean, Gendry saying that he built or fashioned. I mean, there are those that they kept for a reason. Now I don't know if was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They rule by fear. Nobody was coming out of that barn except the sheep once they'd been properly broken with fear.
Yeah. They're the worst of the worst in the books.
But I do think, I mean, Preston is the one that specifically is like this is ridiculous that she would kill Chiswick instead of the Mountain, and you can kind of see his point, right? He actually doesn't like Arya largely because of this, but I don't know. I think like I said, first read, I was right there with Arya.
Yeah.
And you don't get to, she doesn't get to go back and relive the life and say, oh, you know what? Really, I shouldn't blame him. I should blame the Mountain. And she's a
well, I mean,
girl.
I mean, she's what, 9 years old, 10 years old during this. So the man that's openly laughing at the shit that's happening to all these people in her mind is worse than the guy standing there like this watching.
Yeah, so he actually did it. That's the thing, right? He actually did it. So, and he's the one in charge of ordering them and so forth, right? So he's the one responsible. And so the argument that that you shouldn't hold Chiswick for that, you should hold the Mountain responsible for that, it's a reasonable argument, right? And
reasonable, but they both need to die.
Okay, fair enough. The questions were always the same. Was there gold hidden in the village? Silver, gems? Was there more food? Where was Lord Beric Dondarrion? Which of the village folk had aided him? When he rode off, where did he go? How many men were with him? How many knights? How many bowmen? How many men at arms? How were they armed? How many were horsed? How many were wounded? What other enemy had they seen? How many? When? What banners did they fly? Where did they go? Was there gold hidden in the village? Silver? Gems? Where was Lord Beric Dondarrion? How many men were with him? By the third day, Arya could have asked the questions herself. Arya could have asked the questions herself and will. Is this a statement about just how dark she will become? I
believe so. Now,
these formative years is when she's seeing this. She will never forget. Yep. And like I said, it might be a statement about Arya could have asked these questions herself. It might be a statement about how far she'll be willing to go in the future.
I mean, I like badass Arya. I like dark Arya. I know it's a 9-year-old, and I mean, I should be appalled and all this stuff, but it's one of those. It's her chapters, especially as it goes on. Her chapters are just more and captivating and harder to not read and not enjoy, especially when she starts dealing out punishment. I don't know if that says anything about my dark nature, but I mean, I
Right, and
like
that's part
that.
of the point, right? And that's part
Yeah,
of the point of this is that everything is gray, and George wants you to see these things in yourself and so forth, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like this show that was on Stars, Spartacus, uh, which in my mind was the Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. Um, it had a lot of fighting in it, very detailed battles, and then sex. All right. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, for the sex, I could care less if they put that in there or not. But I was captivated by the gladiatorial battles that they portrayed in there and the way they portrayed it. It was beautiful violence is about the only way I can put it. And I mean,
Right, and there's something about stories appealing to our emotions in addition to our logic, right? And the fact that we
yeah,
can't necessarily put into words. Arya Stark, the Dark Sister. I hope she ends up with that sword.
you ain't lying.
Leslie says, "Bite your tongue." I don't know. We've said plenty of things that were about her, So
Yeah.
that's fair enough. I'm sure we've said plenty of things worthy of bite your tongue. Anyway, um, well, Sir Dave Zilla, I think that Val will wield Dark Sister symbolically at least. Anyway.
Oh, remind me when this is over to talk about the Tower of Joy, okay?
All right.
All right.
Did we already do that? They learned that Lord. I don't think we have. No.
No.
They learned that Lord Beric had 10 starvelings with him, for also 100 mounted knights. That he had ridden west or north or south. That he had crossed the lake in a boat. That he was strong as an oryx or weak from the bloody flux. Torture is notoriously unreliable, no matter what the Boltons claim.
Yeah.
The direwolf was the sigil of the Starks, but Arya felt more lamb, surrounded by a herd of other sheep. She hated the villagers for their sheepishness almost as much as she hated herself. The Lancers. I could care less about the sex stuff. This is the problem with these Fair enough. The Lannisters had taken everything: father, friends, home, hope, courage. One had taken Needle, while another had broken her wooden stick sword over his knee. They had even taken her stupid secret. She held it as long as she could, but finally she had to squat by a bush and skin down her breeches in front of all of them. It was that or wet herself. Hot Pie gaped at her with big moon eyes, but no one else even troubled to look. Girl sheep or boy sheep, Sir Gregor and his men did not seem to care. I think we're told Bran's wise old men, the children of the forest, have moon eyes also. So this is arguably sort of children of the forest symbolism, people watching over her that care.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or would it be someone watching through someone's eyes?
Maybe. I'm just saying, why is Hot Pie the one that has the children of the forest symbolism? I mean, he's literally a child, and he's the one that cares about her in the group,
right?
And so that's kind of how I look at it, is kind of implying that the children and the old gods are the only ones that still care, kind of thing.
Right, but yeah,
I don't know. That's how I took it.
No problem.
We never did no treason. The others come in and took what they wanted, same as this bunch. Lord Beric does no hurt, though, her friend whispered. And that red priest with him, he paid for all they took. Paid? Mm-hmm. He took 2 of my chickens and gave me a bit of paper with a mark on it. Can I eat a bit of raggy old paper, I ask you? Or give me eggs? She looked about to see that no guards were near and spat 3 times. There's for the Tullys, and there's for the Lannisters, and there's for the Starks. It's a sin and a shame, an old man hissed. When the old king was still alive, he'd not have stood for this. King Robert? Arya asked, forgetting herself. King Ares, God's grace him, the old man said too loudly. The Mad King didn't really harm the small folk as much as he did those around him.
Yeah. But, I mean, there are theories that he was not as bad as we are told.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think if you put yourself in his shoes for some of these decisions, they kind of make sense. So, for example, the execution of Ned and Robert, if what was happening was that people were spreading a lie that was fomenting rebellion,
mm,
well, what's the penalty for that, right?
right.
Like, it's probably not that unusual that the penalty for that would be death, right?
Well,
And
I mean,
so, telling John Aaron you have to prove yourself, I know for a fact that Ned and Robert are spreading the lie that is fomenting rebellion in my kingdom. So you have to prove your loyalty by giving me their heads, right? That actually that doesn't sound as unreasonable when you put it that way, right? And
right for this,
I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy was sadistic with his choice of execution, but
right?
but is it? But I do suspect that execution by Dawn and Arthur is going to be probably as effective as the fire, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know exactly what's true and what's not true when it comes to the Mad King, and when it
Well,
comes
we
to
know that
calling
those.
for,
We're Jamie's head. We know those things are true, right? We know that he really
yeah,
did. He was sadistic. I think he was sadistic, and
yeah.
um, anyway,
But at what point did he become that? And then
well, that's true too.
asking for Ned and Robert's head is a playbook out of Tywin's playbook.
Right? It's like oh, you gotta prove your loyalty. You know, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, Tywin would have
it's not
killed the whole Stark family. I mean,
it's not anyway.
yeah,
It's not quite as ridiculous as it sounds at first. When you're in the point of view of the Starks, and we know how he treated his wife after he burned someone. Yeah, like I said,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
He was definitely sadistic. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm saying that some of the things that he ordered aren't quite as ridiculous as they at first seem. Yeah,
Yeah, he was
absolutely,
very dark.
absolutely. Like I said, I think he was very sadistic.
Yeah.
Um,
How, I
I,
want to know
anyway,
how close to Harrenhal did that point start? I mean, was it because someone was messing with his head? I mean, because I mean, when he's younger, him and Tywin are two peas in the pod, and how much of that is the Varys whispering in his ear? How much? I'm not saying he's a
right,
good
right.
guy. He's crap.
Right. I mean, I used to think that this, in particular, that order was ridiculous. But you think about the level of power he had and what he expected to have happen, and it's like, no, if they were actually spreading this lie that was fomenting rebellion, it's not the most ridiculous order in the world. Anyway,
Yeah. Sorry.
Arya glanced sidelong at Needle. She took the. Don't be sorry. This is what we're here to do: is talk about these kind of things, right? And that's the whole point, is that it's all complicated, and everybody's gray, and so forth, right? And I
Right.
especially like your comment that it's hard to put into words the emotional grab that good stories can have, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
How long back did Tywin leave King's Landing about the king trying to get his wife? I may have gone mad, but the why always seems to be the important part. Yeah, that's that too. Yeah, Sir Dave Zilla, there's some interesting things in the timeline that are somewhat misleading. Like for example, the words "not long thereafter departed at once." Right? That's a pretty that's a pretty vague term that's designed to make you think something happened right away that didn't. Right? And
Yeah.
so it's very hard to answer some of these questions, like when did this happen, kind of thing.
But it was before Harrenhal, though, right?
Well, that Tywin stopped being the hand.
Yeah. Tywin leaving as hand would be
Yeah, it could
roughly.
be. Yeah, it could be. Anyway, um, yeah, I mean, and he's actually still hand after he's
Oh
actually
no,
still
he's
hand
hand.
after he's still hand after the birth of the twins, right? Because
Right.
he specifically Ares goes to visit them and comments on you know Joanna's breasts. Anyway, uh, where were we? Arya
Grab a
glanced
new.
sidelong at Needle. Yeah, Arya glanced sidelong at Needle. Sheathed at the hip of a black-bearded, balding man-at-arms called Polliver. It's good that they took it away, she thought. Otherwise, she would have tried to stab Sir Gregor, and he would have cut her right in half, and the wolves would eat her too. If Varys was in love with Joanna as opposed to his wife, that could explain the turn. Oh, definitely, definitely.
Definitely.
Uh, Pollock was not so bad as some of the others, even though he'd stolen Needle. The night she was caught, the Lannister men had been nameless strangers with faces as alike as their nasal helms, but she'd come to know them all. You had to know who was lazy and who was cruel, who was smart and who was stupid. You had to learn that even though the one they called you had to learn that even though the one they called Shitmouth had the foulest tongue she'd ever heard, he'd give you an extra piece of bread if you asked, while jolly old Chiswick and soft-spoken Raff would just give you the back of their hand. Arya watched and listened and polished her hates the way Gendry had once polished his horned helm. Dunstan wore those bull's horns now, and she hated him for it. She hated Polliver for Needle, she hated old Chiswick, who thought he was funny, and Raff the Sweetling had driven his spear through Lami's throat. She hated even more. She hated Sir Armory Lorch for Yoren, and she hated Sir Meryn Trant for Syrio, the Hound for killing the Bush's boy Micah, and Sir Ilan and Prince Joffrey and the Queen for the sake of her father and Fat Tom and Desmond and the rest, and even for Lady Sansa's Wolf. The Tickler was almost too scary to hate. At times, she could almost forget he was still with them when he was not asking questions. He was just another soldier, quieter than most, with a face like 1,000 other men. Every night, Arya would say their names. Sir Gregor, she'd whisper to her stone pillow, Dunstan, Polliver, Chiswick, Raff the Sweetling, Tickler and the Hound, Sir Amory, Sir Ilan, Sir Meryn, King Joffrey, Queen Cersei. Back in Winterfell, Arya had prayed with her mother in the Sept, with her father in the Godswood, but there were no gods on the road to Harrenhal, and her names were the only prayer she cared to remember. So one thing I do want to say is that Tickler reminds me of Mance, right? Mance looks nothing like a wildling and nothing like a king, and just sort of blends into the background.
Yeah.
But this is Arya's famous list. She's like a Lannister, waiting to pay her debts.
When did the list start?
Here.
This is it.
Yeah, that's why she goes through it. First, she explains why I hate each person, and then she tells us the list.
Okay. Well, I'd watched the video and they were talking about something that happened with Jaqen H'ghar, and he doesn't pay her. Something about paying her a visit shortly after she started the list.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's probably the next chapter.
Yeah, it is. And I'm pretty sure. But this is it right here. And he hasn't paid her that visit yet. So
Yeah.
If this isn't the start, then they're wrong. Anyway, from outside, only the tops of 5 immense towers could be seen beyond the walls. The shortest of them was half again as tall as the highest tower in Winterfell, but they did not soar the way a proper tower did. Arya thought they looked like some old man's gnarled, knuckly fingers groping after a passing cloud. She remembered Nan telling how the stone had melted and glowed like candle wax down the steps and in the windows, glowing a sullen, searing red as it sought out Harren where he hid. Arya could believe every word. Each tower was more grotesque and misshapen than the last, lumpy and runneled and cracked. I don't want to go there, Hot Pie squeaked as Harrenhal opened its gates to him. There's ghosts in there. Chiswick heard him, but for once he only smiled. Baker boy, here's your choice. Come join the ghosts or be one. Hot Pie went in with the rest of them. Arya's the only ghost.
I think of the 5 towers looking like 5 glass candles.
Oh, I did want to say something about that. Yeah, gnarled kind of reminds me of tree. So a tree groping, right? Because you get a lot of this trees scraping against the sky kind of symbolism, which probably implies, if we're going to go, LML kind of style, that it's Weirwood magic calling down, meteors or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out recently on Reddit that if you think about it, the Targaryens are the king reptiles, and that all the people that take over afterwards are mammals. And so essentially the hammer of Robert's Warhammer hitting Rhaegar is like a meteor destroying the dinosaurs, right? The reptiles were kings, and now the mammals rule.
That's pretty cute.
Yeah. I'm like, oh wow, I like that. Anyway, when Arya's turn came around, Goodwife Amabel clucked in dismay at the sight of her feet, while Goodwife Hera felt the callus on her fingers that long hours of practice with needle had earned her. Got those churning butter, I'll wager, she said. Some farmer's whelp, are you? Well, never you mind, girl. You have a chance to win a higher place in this world if you work hard. If you won't work hard, you'll be beaten. What do they call you? Sad how far she's fallen, but George loves his irony.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Lane says that's really good. Love it. In terms of the Robert's Warhammer being a meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs.
I want to say the LML had a video a couple of weeks ago. I think it was called "The Children of the Lizard People" or something like that.
Yeah, he's
I didn't
definitely
like
pushed
it.
that. He's definitely pushed this idea that the children of the forest are lizard people. Tyrannosaurus sounds like a Lannister, though. Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it reminds me of Tyrion and Paisha saying that their names that sound the same.
Yeah.
Arya dared not say her true name, but Arya was no good either. It was a boy's name, and they could see she was no boy. Weasel, she said, naming the first girl she could think of. Lummy called me Weasel. I can see why, sniffed Goodwife Annabelle. That hair is fright and a nest for lice as well. We'll have it off, and then you're for the kitchens. I'd sooner tend the horses. That seemed like a good idea. Lord Tywin and his knights.
Hold on a second. That I would sooner tend the horses. Her speaking out at that moment put her with Wheeze. That puts her in. I mean, it sets the path that she has. In Harrenhal is set by that one. I'd sooner tend the horses. That puts her on her path in Harrenhal.
Yep. Lizzie asked, but does the Tyrannosaurus shed gold?
I'd hate to see the size of it.
So finally, we meet the last name for the Ghost of the Whisper. Weiss was under steward for the Wailing Tower, a squat man with a fleshy carbuncle of a nose and a nest of angry red boils near one corner of his plump lips. Arya was one of 6 sent to him. He looked them all over with a gimlet eye. The Lancers are generous to those who serve them well, an honor none of you sort deserve. But in war, a man makes do with what's to hand. Work hard and mind your place. It might be one day you'll rise as high as me. If you think to presume on his lordship's kindness, though, you'll find me waiting after my lord has gone, you see. He strutted up and down before them, telling them how they must never look the highborn in the eye, nor speak until spoken to, nor get in his lordship's way. My nose never lies, he boasted. I can smell defiance. I can smell pride. I can smell disobedience. I catch a whiff of any such stinks, you'll answer for it. When I sniff you, all I want to smell is fear. Lizard lions?
Fear cuts deeper than swords. What
I love about Arya is that she doesn't feel below her station. She I'd rather be a servant here. She's so adaptable. Yeah. The fact that she's always been comfortable with the small folk, right?
Like we said before, each her and Sansa were perfectly made for the journey that was ahead of them.
Yep. Well, that wraps up this chapter. Up next, we get Daenerys 2. Welcome to Karth, the greatest city that ever was or ever will be, or so they say.
Short chapter. Oh.
Yeah, it is a pretty short chapter.
All right. Now, the question on Twitter that caught me today, it was a picture of Jon Snow. This is what would you do if you woke up? And then they were talking about his name. There's they were calling him Aegon, but is that a D&D stupid thing, or is his name
No, it's not D&D stupid thing. It's D&D doing what's actually going to happen in the books, which is that Aegon was born at the Tower of Joy of Rhaegar and Lyanna, right? I mean, they were doing what this and they needed Aegon in his plot. But anyway,
right. Well, I mean,
he's not the only one. He's not the only one, but that's what they were doing.
Well, they're thinking Jon was born in the Tower of Joy. Jon's a Targaryen, and was his name Aegon, or was it Aemon, or was it the Viserys because it's like Visenya? And I'm like, okay, if Rhaegar, I asked a couple questions. I don't know if it's going to get me in trouble or not, but if Rhaegar was expecting a girl and he was recreating the 3 heads of the dragon, wouldn't Visenya been the first daughter instead of Rhaenyra's?
It is weird that they did it backwards like that. Yeah, it's strange.
It's a clue from George that they weren't part of the 3 heads of the dragon because he got it wrong. He didn't recreate the 3 heads of the dragon with Visenya, Aegon.
Well, he was right in that Visenya Reborn was his next kid. His next kid was Visenya Reborn. But only
Yeah,
because she's the oldest
exactly.
of the three. Only because she's the oldest of the three, right?
That makes the math work out. That puts it the way that the three heads in the tower were born, because Visenya was the first one born. So I just thought it was
Right.
funny. And I didn't wait to get an answer on it or anything. Apologize to the ghost for how I treated him.
We didn't do Sir Dave's yet. So Arya's a lot like Egg in that way, and that she's comfortable with the small folk, right? Adaptable and comfortable with the small folk.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then apologize to Ghost for how I treated him in season 8. How you treated him, Lizzie?
What'd you do, Lizzie?
What did Lizzie do to Ghost? What did Lizzie do to Ghost?
She did shots. There was something else too. Now I can't remember. I lost it. That was one of the things that
was the thing. That was the thing at the Tower of Joy that you wanted me to remind you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a big clue from George that Rhaegar initially got it wrong. That those two are not part. If I woke up, yeah. That's it. If I woke up as Jon Snow, I said the first thing I would do was change my name to Jon Stark. But that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, that just never set well with me that he named his oldest daughter Rhaenyra when it should have been Visenya. But you're right. The next daughter that was born. Oh yeah, there was like, okay, this is the other part. All right. If they named the baby Aegon, or if you named it Aemon, or if you named it Viserys because it's like Visenya, that would mean that Rhaegar had to give a name for Rhaegar, because they're saying Rhaegar named the child. I'm going to think to myself, how the hell did Rhaegar name the child? Because he wasn't there.
Right.
It would have been Lyanna that named the child, or children. But if he gave her a name to name a child, it would have been a girl's name, and it would have been Visenya. There wouldn't have been the Aegon. There wouldn't have been Daenerys, or if that's her actual birth name, if it's not Rhaenyra. But I do. You do have to wonder
what is the point of the what is the point of the names of Val and Daenerys? I mean, there's obviously multiple Daenerys in fact, Daenerys the Dreamer. That's the of course it's Daenerys the Dreamer that matters, right? I mean, that's kind of what's being said there.
Well, I mean, Val and Visenya both start with a V, and I'm assuming that if they're trying to hide the identity of the children that were born,
right, you need a name that sounds more like a wildling princess than one that sounds
right. So I mean, yeah,
Arthur does probably consider a princess, but
and then
but anyway,
and then Daenerys' name, if born in the Tower of Joy, should have been Rhaenyra, right? Well, if they sneak her in with Viserys, there was already a child that was named Rhaenyra, so they might have changed it to Daenerys.
Yeah, it probably sounded too similar.
I don't know.
I believe this is the name she should go with. Yeah,
that was on mine. Sorry, I know it's kind of scatterbrained.
Yeah, that's all right.
I don't go on Twitter very often, but I was on it for a good little bit this morning because everybody's talking about Ice and FireCon. Lizzie talking about shots. The last hour ride, I think, is in the woods, and she's going to start doing shots as soon as she hits the woods. You got to let me know when you hit the woods, so I'll do shots with you over the phone. I'm taking peanut butter bourbon with me. All right, you got anything else, man?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, next one is Daenerys 2. Wednesday. No, are you good Wednesday this week?
Yeah.
All right. Lizzie, Sir Dave Zilla, Jeremy, James Martin, Lady Thistle. I know you're still painting your room or working on crafts. We appreciate y'all, and we will see y'all Wednesday with Danny 2. No shots until I hit the cabin. Oh, okay. You sold me the woods. But all right, I'll be there. And we'll see y'all Wednesday. I've been Old Noob Dude. He has been
Richard York, Asher's Tribune Son.
Y'all have a good day. Bye.